Hello and welcome everyone to my list on the top 5 auto-includes for each color in Commander. So what do I mean by an auto-include? An auto-include is a card that is useful for any strategy, therefore goes in any deck that can run it. These are the cards I usually end up putting in the deck first whenever I construct a deck list. The following lists are ordered from least useful card being at number 5 to most useful card being at number 1. However, all their utility is pretty similar, so you can easily switch the spots around. I'll be putting cards with similar functionalities on the same spot on the lists, otherwise the list would be filled with cards with redundant effects. I'll also mention these lists are for casual Commander, not competitive. If this video was for competitive Commander, the lists would be completely different. I'll start these lists off with white. Number 5, Weathered Wayfarer. Weathered Wayfarer is one of the only popular land tutors that can grab any land. There are some really broken lands available in Commander, so being able to grab one of these every time this guy taps is incredibly powerful. He also guarantees land drops. If you had an opening hand with just a plains and this guy, guess what? You're good on lands, unless if some jerk decides to kill him. Number 4, Return to Dust. Return to Dust is a 2-for-1 removal spell at Exiles, which is a solid, effective removal. Every deck should have cards that remove artifacts and enchantments, and Return to Dust is one of the best. Number 3, Land Tax. I like to call Land Tax White's most powerful card draw spell. Now I know what you're thinking. This doesn't draw cards, you stupid piece of crap. Just a basic land. First off, basic lands are good. You're ensuring that you don't miss a land drop. But you know what isn't good is top decking lands over and over again, especially late game. Well, Land Tax helps to remedy this problem by increasing your card draw quality. I think this card is ingenious in terms of game design. It makes White's card draw quality better than giving it card draw quantity. While most colors gain card advantage through card quantity, White should gain card advantage through card quality. That's a great balance when compared to the other colors. Unfortunately, Wizards decided that this and a few other cards is all White gets, which I think is an absolute fail. Making more cards with a similar effect to Land Tax would give White a boost in card quality and mana consistency, which could be an effect unique to White. And this would give an edge that the color desperately needs, since they can't draw cards effectively or efficiently. Well, that's enough of me rambling about game design. Let's get to the next card. Number 2, Enlightened Tutor. Not only is Enlightened Tutor a great tutor, but more importantly it's a way to grab Soul Ring early on in the game. Enchantments and artifacts are very popular and powerful in Commander, so if you aren't grabbing Soul Ring with this card, then you're probably grabbing something else that's powerful. Number 1 is Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. Swords and Path are the two most efficient removal spells in Commander. They're impossible for your opponents to play around since leaving one white mana available is fairly easy. Heck, I think these cards would be great if they just killed the creature, but they even exile them. The benefit that these cards give the creature's controller is usually minimal compared to the threat that they answered, unless if the creature had an insane amount of power and you just gained your opponent 20 plus life. I'd say Swords is the better out of the two, because it's cheaper price wise, and I'd prefer to give my opponents a couple points of life rather than ramping them. Now let's see what the most powerful color in Magic has to offer. Number 5 is Rapid Hybridization and Pongify. These two are Blue's version of Swords and Path. Although they're not as good, their efficiency should not be underestimated. Like Swords and Path, these cards are impossible for your opponents to play around, and the benefit that your opponents get in the form of a 3/3 is laughable at best. Number 4, Mystical Tutor. This is the blue version of the 1-mana tutor cycle. This one grabs sorceries and instants, arguably the two best card types. There aren't very many mana efficient tutors in Commander, so having access to a 1-mana tutor is a rare and powerful opportunity. Number 3, Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora. These are the two most powerful card draw spells for blue. With a small investment you'll draw a ton of cards and slow down your opponents. I'm a big fan of enchantments that continually draw cards throughout the game. I think they're the best form of card draw available in Commander. Number 2 is Counterspell, Arcane Denial, and Negate. These are the 3 counterspells that I shove into any deck playing blue. Counterspell is the most powerful form of removal there is in Magic, and blue is the only color that has access to the efficient counterspells. I only like running the 2 mana counterspell since being at 2 mana makes it difficult for your opponents to play around. Number 1 is Cyclonic Rift. Cyclonic Rift is a one-sided board wipe that can be used at instant speed. No other card in Commander can do that. This card can both save you the game and close out the game, 2 of the most powerful effects you can ask for in a Commander match. Plus you can use the powered down version of this effect for 2 mana, which comes in handy in a pinch. There's definitely a reason why Cyclonic Rift is the most popular blue card in Commander. What are the black auto includes? Number 5, Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Wizards once said that they didn't want to make lands that are strictly better than basic lands, like the original dual lands. Then why did they make this card? In my opinion, I think Urborg is a strictly better swamp that helps make multicolored decks mana a little more consistent, and it makes Cabal coffers much better. I guess the downside is that you help your opponents too. However, this can be used to your advantage too if you have something with Swamp Walk. Number 4, Bojuka Bog. Every deck needs Graveyard Hate. However, most Graveyard Hate has an opportunity cost that's too high. Typical Graveyard Hate just removes a graveyard, and that's it. You didn't affect the board state at all, and now you're down a card. And what if no one is playing a graveyard-based strategy? Then it's just a dead card. And does anyone really want to take up a deck slot just for some generic Graveyard Hate? Well, Bojuka Bog is a card that solves most of these problems. Bojuka Bog, unlike other Graveyard Hate, only takes up a land slot in your deck. And it does more than just exile graveyard. It obviously taps for mana. The only downside is that it comes into play tapped, which is well worth the cost of having Graveyard Hate attached to a land. Number 3, Phyrexian Arena. Phyrexian Arena is a solid card draw enchantment, and it's the fair version of Necropotence. However, it's playable in more decks than Necro since it doesn't have Necro's restricted mana cost. You'll be surprised how useful and necessary consistent card advantage is in Commander. Number 2 is Toxic Deluge. Toxic Deluge is one of the most efficient board wipes in the game since it's only 3 mana. This card also gets around indestructible and can even turn into a one-sided board wipe if your creatures have a higher toughness than your opponent's creatures. The amount of life you pay is usually only in the single digits, and when you compare that to the amount of life you would have lost those creatures if this card didn't kill them, it becomes obvious that it's well worth the price. Number 1 is Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor. These tutors are the best cards in Commander. Being able to tutor for any card in your deck means you're always getting the best possible card for the current situation whenever you cast these tutors. So these have to be the best cards in Commander by default. Just think of how broken these cards are. The fair version of Demonic Tutor is Diabolic Tutor, which costs double the mana. Now let's move on to red. Number 5, Blood Moon. I'd only recommend using this card in a mono red deck or a 2-color deck that has red in it. But when this card is used in one of those color combinations, it will wreck any deck with a greedy mana base. Number 4, Chaos Warp. I'd only recommend Chaos Warp in a mono red deck or a Rakdos deck, since red and black are the only colors that can't deal with enchantments, and Chaos Warp is one of the only removal spells available in those colors that can deal with enchantments. This card does have the potential to give your opponents a huge benefit, so it's on the low side of potential removal spells to run in a deck. Number 3, Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast. Blue runs rampant in Commander, and these 2 spells are the best way to deal with blue. Not only can they counter annoying blue spells, but they can blow up blue permanents too. They're almost impossible to predict since they're only 1 mana, and they're criminally underused in the casual Commander meta, so no one will expect them. Number 2, Blasphemous Act. Blasphemous Act is the only 1 mana board wipe in Magic. The 13 damage is likely to kill all creatures on the board, and unlike other board wipes, you'll have plenty of mana to rebuild your board after casting this spell. The opportunity to use this card is one of the biggest advantages to playing red. And number 1 is Vandalblast. Vandalblast is the only one-sided artifact board wipe available in Commander. Artifacts are widely used in Commander, from mana rocks to useful utility artifacts. So when you use an overloaded Vandalblast, you're destroying a lot of your opponent's mana and all the utility artifacts they may have. Let's see what green has available. Number 5 is Farseek and Nature's Lore. These two are rampant growth effects that can grab dual lands, although Farseek is useless in a mono green deck. This type of an effect is exactly what you want to do in the first couple turns of a match, which sets you up to be ahead or at least on par with your opponents. If you're playing green, you want to ramp, and these cards do that. Number 4, Kodama's Reach and Cultivate. Us Commander players are spoiled. We get 2 copies of this excellent effect. If you have 3 lands and one of these in your opening hand, you're good on lands for quite a while. These cards do exactly what you want to do when running green. They ramp and color fix. Number 3, Birds of Paradise. Green is known for how great it is at ramping, and Birds is one of the greatest at it. Birds is the only mana dork at 1 CMC that can tap for any color, making it the best mana dork in Magic. I don't see how any deck running green wouldn't want to play this bird. It both fixes your mana and gets you to 3 mana on turn 2. Number 2, Beast Within. Beast Within is one of the most flexible removal spells in Commander. Being able to hit any permanent, including lands, is something that's rare for any removal spell, and this is the only version of that effect that's at a reasonable mana cost. In a 3/3 beast that gets hardly a downside. Number 1 is Sylvan Library. As you can tell by now, I love using card draw enchantments, and this one is one of the most powerful, and a color that's hungry for card draw. This really seems more like a black spell since you pay life for added effects, something black tends to do, but it's green for some reason, so green players rejoice! You can play colorless spells in any deck, so these should be considered auto-includes for any color or color combination. Number 5 is Sensei's Divining Top. Every deck needs some kind of card draw. Top might not be card draw, but it's great as card manipulation, the next best thing. It being only 1 mana to cast and activate makes it incredibly efficient and reliable for any deck. Number 4 is Fellwar Stone. Fellwar Stone is one of the best 2 CMC mana rocks available in Commander. I'd even play it in a monocolor deck if you need the ramp, which most decks need. It's one of the few 2 CMC mana rocks that produce colored mana that come into play untapped, with a minimal and strange downside that you can only tap it for mana that your opponents could produce, which is probably your colors too if you're playing in a multiplayer game. Number 3, the Signets. 2 CMC and less is exactly where most decks want their mana ramp, so you can ramp the first and second turns of the game. Then you can start playing your real spells, and Signets provide you with this early game ramp in every 2-color pairing. I usually don't play Signets in decks running green since they have access to better forms of ramp. However, Signets are a godsend to any non-green deck, especially those decks that are very mana intensive. Number 2 is Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. Every Commander deck has a general, and your general is a creature. Exception being the 5 Planeswalker commanders. So you probably want to protect your general and give it the option to swing or tap the turn it comes down, while Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots has you covered. They both protect the creature they're equipped to and give it haste, 2 powerful abilities. I'd recommend these cards in every deck. Unless if Shroud is a problem, then don't use Lightning Greaves. Number 1 is Soul Ring. Oh, what a surprise! It's Commander. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my video. I'd appreciate if you smash that like button, comment, and subscribe. I'm also curious how your list would differ, so why don't you put your version of the list in the comment section below. And again, thanks for watching.